At that time the Buddha's lion seat, its round platform of exquisite flowers of many jewels, its base, steps, doors, and all of its embellishments, each produced as many great enlightening beings as there are atoms in a Buddha land. Their names were Oceanic Wisdom, Sovereign King of Occult Powers, Thunder shaking all, Topknot of Lights of many jewels, Bold Intelligence of Sun of Knowledge, Seal of Knowledge made of jewels of inconceivable qualities, 100-eye Lotus Topknot, Light spheres of golden flames, Universal sound of the cosmos, Cloud sound pure moon, Banner of light of benevolent courage. These were the leaders, and there were as many as them, as atoms in many Buddha lands. At the same time as they appeared, these enlightening beings each produced clouds of various offerings. For example, clouds of flowers of all jewels, clouds of all subtle fragrances of lotus blossoms, clouds of orbs, of jewel lights, clouds of fragrant flames of boundless realms, clouds of jewel-like light spheres from the treasury of the sun, clouds of all pleasing musical sounds, clouds of flames of light from all jewel lamps, with boundless colors and forms, clouds of branches, flowers, and fruits from trees of many jewels, clouds of regal jewels with inexhaustible pure radiance, clouds of all the finest decorative gems. There were as many such clouds of various offerings as there are atoms in a Buddha world. Each of these enlightening beings produced such clouds of offerings unceasingly, raining on the oceanic assemblies at all enlightenment sites. Having manifested these clouds, they circled the Buddha to the right, circling him countless hundreds of thousands of times, in whatever direction they came from. There, not far from the Buddha, they magically produced innumerable lotus lion seats of various jewels, and each sat cross-legged thereon. The spheres of action of these enlightening beings were pure and vast as the sea. They had attained the state of universality of illumination, of knowledge and wisdom. Following the Buddhas, they were unhindered in their actions, and they were able to enter the ocean of all principles of discernment and elucidation, and had mastered the teaching of inconceivable liberation. They dwelt in the state of all-sidedness of the Buddhas. They had already mastered all techniques of concentration formula, and were able to contain the ocean of all the teachings. They dwelt in the stage of equanimous knowledge of past, present, and future. They had attained the immense joy of profound faith. Their boundless stores of blessings were most pure. They observed everywhere in space, throughout the cosmos. They diligently made offerings to all Buddhas appearing in any land in all worlds. At that time, the enlightening being, Oceanic Wisdom, Sovereign King of Occult Powers, the great spiritual hero, empowered by the Buddha, surveyed the ocean of masses at the scene of enlightenment and said in verse, "Buddha knows what all Buddhas have realized. Unhindered as space, he illumines all. His light pervading countless lands everywhere, he sits amidst the host of all magnificently pure. The Buddha's virtues cannot be measured. They fill all the cosmos in every direction. Sitting under every enlightenment tree, all the great powers assemble like clouds. Buddha has such spiritual powers, manifesting infinite forms at once. The Buddha's sphere is beyond bounds. Individuals see according to their liberation. Buddha passed oceans of aeons, working in all realms of being, teaching creatures by various means, having them accept and practice enlightening ways. Vairochana, replete with magnificent refinements, sits on a lotus bank lion seat. All the assembled hosts are pure. Silently, all gaze in respect. The banks of jewels radiate light, emitting boundless clouds of fragrant flames. Countless flower garlands are draped around on such a seat does the Buddha sit. Various adornments decorate its glorious facades, constantly emitting lamp-like clouds of all fragrant flames. Immensely vast, blazing, illumining all, the sage sits upon supreme embellishments. Beautiful windows of various jewels, draped with lotuses of exquisite gems, always producing sublime sounds, delighting all hearers. Thereon Buddha sits, most radiant of all. A jewel crescent supports the seat shaped like a half moon. Diamond is its pedestal, its color blazing bright. Enlightening beings constantly circle it. Buddha is the most radiant among them. His various mystic displays fill the 10 directions, expounding the far-reaching vows of the Enlightened One. All reflected images appear therein. It is on such a seat the Buddha calmly sits. At that time, the great enlightening being, thunder shaking all, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the assembled hosts and said, Buddha accumulated enlightenment practices, making offerings to infinite Buddhas everywhere, sustained by the power of the Enlightened One. None do not see him on his seat. Jewels of fragrant flames, fulfilling all wishes, encrust the Buddha's flower-lined throne. Various adornments, all appearing as reflections, are clearly seen by all the hosts. Buddha's throne displays magnificent forms. Instant to instant, their colors and types each differ. According to the differences in beings' understandings, each sees the Buddha thereupon. Jewel branches hang down, webs of lotus flowers. As the flowers open, enlightening beings emerge, each producing sublime, pleasing voices, praising the Buddha on his throne. Buddha's virtues are extensive as space. All adornments are born from them. The embellishing features of each particular state no sentient being can comprehend. Diamond is the ground, indestructible, vast, pure, level, and even. Nets of pearls hang in the sky, all around the enlightenment tree. The infinite colors of the ground are all distinct. Gold dust is spread all around. Flowers and jewels strewn about, all beautifying Buddha's throne. Earth spirits dance with joy, with infinite manifestations in an instant, creating clouds of adornments everywhere, while remaining reverently gazing at Buddha. Jewel lamps, immensely large, shining extremely bright. Fragrant flames and swirling light never ending. These manifestations differ according to the time. Earth spirits make offerings of these. All the adornments existing in every single land appear at this enlightenment scene, by the mystic power of Buddha. Then the great enlightening being, jewel-light Topknot, empowered by the Buddha, surveyed the oceanic masses at the sight of enlightenment and said, when the Buddha was cultivating practice in the past, he saw various Buddha lands, all fully complete. The lands he saw this way were endless. All of them appear at this enlightenment scene. The Buddha's enormous spiritual powers sheds light showering gems everywhere. This treasury of jewels is scattered over the sight, beautifying the ground all around. Buddha's blessings and mystical powers adorn everywhere with precious gemstones. The ground and the enlightenment tree alternately emit light and sound expressing the truth. Precious lamps, infinite, rain from the sky, studded with regal sapphires, all emitting subtle sounds, speaking truth. This the earth spirits cause to appear. The jewel ground manifests ubiquitous clouds of light. Jewel lamps blaze bright as lightning. Jewel nets, hung afar, cover above. Jewel boughs, variously draped, make decorations. Look over the entire ground, adorned with various beautiful jewels. It shows beings, the ocean of actions, causing them to comprehend the real nature of things. The Enlightenment trees in all spheres of all the Buddhas everywhere, all appear at the Enlightenment site, expounding the Buddha's pure teaching in accord with the inclinations of being's mind. The ground produces wonderful sounds, conforming to what the Buddha would preach at his seat. Each of the teachings fully explained. The ground constantly produces subtle fragrant light. In the light are chanted pure clear sounds. If any beings are able to receive the teaching, it causes them to hear, and their afflictions vanish. Each adornment is fully complete, and could not be described in a million years. The Buddha's mystic power extends everywhere. That's why the ground is beautifully pure. Then the enlightening being, bold intelligence of the Sun of Knowledge, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the multitudes assembled on the scene and said in verse, Buddha sits in the hall of truth with steady gaze, brilliantly lighting up the palace. In accordance with the dispositions of all beings, his body appears throughout all lands. The Buddha's palace is beyond conception, adorned with stores of precious jewels, each decorations shining with light. Sitting there, the Buddha is most conspicuous of all. With pillars of jewels of various hues, chimes of real gold hanging like clouds, jewel stairways in rows on four sides, the gates open in every direction, arrays of banners of flowery silk, jewel trees, decorated branches and boughs, garlands and pearls draped on all sides. The ocean of wisdom sits calmly therein. Nets of jewels, exquisite fragrant banners, brilliant lamps hung like clouds, covered with various decorations. The world, transcending, true knower sits within. Everywhere he manifests clouds of mystic displays, those clouds teaching throughout the world, harmonizing and calming down all sentient beings. All this appears from the Buddha's palace. Trees of gems bloom with fine flowers, having no peer in all the world. The embellishments of the lands of all times reveal their reflections therein. Everywhere there are heaps of jewels. There light blazes in countless hues. Gates and doors open at intervals all around. The beams and ceilings are especially beautiful. The Buddha's palace is inconceivable. Its pure radiance contains every form. In it appears all palaces, a Buddha sitting in each. The Buddha's palace is boundless. The naturally awakened one abides therein. All the masses from the 10 directions come gather around the Buddha. Then the great enlightening being, seal of knowledge made of jewels of inconceivable qualities, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the oceans of beings, gathered at the scene of enlightenment, and said in verse, The Buddha cultivated an ocean of blessings, many as atoms in all lands, produced by the powers of his mind and will. The enlightenment site is pure, without any taint. Wish-fulfilling jewels are the roots of the trees. Diamond are their trunks. Nets of jewels cover them, and rich fragrance surrounds. The tree branches are adorned by all kinds of gems. The limbs are of precious stone, soaring high. The branches and twigs hang thickly, like heavy clouds. Underneath sits Buddha on the enlightenment site. The site of enlightenment is unthinkably vast. The trees surround it, covering it all. The dense foliage and luxurious flowers mutually cover and reflect, while the flowers grow gemstone fruits. From among all the branches emanate beautiful lights, illuminating the whole enlightenment scene. Pure, bright, inexhaustible, this appears by the power of Buddha's vows. Banks of precious stones are the flowers, reflections, shining like patterned clouds. The encircling trees perfume all around. The enlightenment site adorns everywhere. See the site of the Buddha's enlightenment. Lotuses of jewel nets, all pure. Flames of light in whorls appear from here. Music of bells and chimes come from the clouds. All the wonderfully adorned trees existing in all lands appear in the enlightenment tree. Buddha, beneath it, sheds all defilement. The site of enlightenment is made of vast blessings. The tree branches rain jewels without end. In the jewels appear enlightening beings, going everywhere to serve the Buddhas. The realm of the Buddhas is inconceivable. They cause all the trees to produce music, in accord with enlightening ways they developed by the Buddha. The host of beings, hearing the music, can see it all. Then the great enlightening being, 100 eyes lotus top-knot, empowered by the Buddha, surveyed all the assemblies at the scene of enlightenment and said, "All jewels emit wondrous sounds, extolling the names of Buddhas of all times. The deeds of those Buddhas' mystical powers can all be viewed in this enlightenment scene. Flowers bloom in profusion like parti-colored cloth. Clouds of light flow in all directions. The spirits of enlightenment trees bring these to the Buddha, with single-minded devotion making offerings of them. Flames of jewel light all form banners. From the banners burst forth sublime fragrances, the fragrances perfuming all in the congregations. Therefore the palace is all beautifully pure. Lotuses hang down, with lights of golden hue, the light intoning clouds of Buddha's wondrous voice, covering all the lands in the 10 directions, extinguishing the fires of sentient beings' torments. The independent power of Enlightenment Tree King constantly radiates light extremely pure. The assembled masses in the 10 directions have no bounds, yet all of them appear reflected in the enlightenment scene. The light flames of the jewel branches are like bright lamps. The light emanates sound, declaring the great vow. What the Buddha practiced of yore in all states of being is fully expounded therein. Under the tree are spirits as many as atoms in the land, all staying together at this enlightenment site, each before the Buddha's enlightenment tree, continuously expounding liberation doors. Buddha practiced many deeds of yore, making offerings to all the enlightened. He practices as well as his fame. All appear within the jewels. Everything in the scene produces wonderful sound. The sound is vast, pervading the 10 directions. If any beings can hear the teaching, it civilizes them and makes them pure. The Buddha, in the past, cultivated infinite embellishments, all the adornments, innumerable kinds, of every enlightenment tree. Then the great enlightening being, light spheres of golden flames, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the assemblies at the scene of enlightenment and said, "Buddha cultivated enlightening practices, comprehending all things, clarifying the true and the false. This is the Buddha's first power of knowledge. As in the past he observed the nature of all things equally, he clarified the oceans of all doings. Thus now, in the nets of lights, he can tell it all throughout all quarters. In past aeons he developed great techniques for guiding beings according to their faculties, causing all their minds to be pure. This was the Buddha, able to perfect the knowledge of potentials. As the understanding of sentient beings is not the same, and their inclinations and actions are different, he teaches them according to their needs. Buddha can do this by his powers of knowledge, comprehending the ocean of lands in all directions, all the worlds of beings they contain. Buddha's knowledge is equanimous, like space, all he can show within a pore. Buddha knows the outcome of all acts, comprehending past, present, future, instantly, the lands, ages, beings, and times of all regions, all he can reveal and make clear. Meditation states, liberations, and powers are boundless, and so are trances and other techniques. Buddha shows them all to beings, gladdening them, causing all to wash away the darkness of afflictions. Buddha's knowledge is unhindered, comprehending all times. All he shows in an instant, in his hair pores. The Buddha's teachings, lands, and sentient beings, all these appear from his recollective power. Buddha's eye is as vast as space. He sees the entire cosmos in the unimpeded state, with unequaled function. All Buddhas can tell of this eye. All sentient beings are totally bound, all their intoxications and habits. Buddha causes them to be removed by his methods, appearing throughout the world. Then, the great enlightening being, universal sound of the cosmos, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the assembled beings at the sight of enlightenment and said, "The Buddha's awesome spiritual powers pervade the 10 directions, their grandiose displays making no discrimination. The transcendent means, enlightening practices, fulfilled in the past, all they show. Of old he conceived compassion for beings, and practiced transcendent generosity, wherefore his body is most sublime, gladdening all who see. In boundless aeons past, he cultivated transcendent self-control, so acquired a pure body all-pervading. The extinguishing of the various torments of the world, he cultivated patience and tolerance, pure, faithful to truth, without discrimination, so his physical form is perfect, shedding light in all directions. He strove for boundless aeons past, able to overthrow the barriers of sentient beings. Therefore he can emanate bodies in all directions, all appearing under enlightenment trees. Buddha practiced for long, long aeons, oceans of meditations, all of them pure. Thus he delights his beholders, removing all taint of afflictions. Buddha mastered the ocean of practices, fulfilling transcendent wisdom. Therefore he sheds light, illumining all, destroying the darkness of ignorance. Edifying beings by various means, he causes their practice to succeed. Traveling everywhere in the 10 directions, for boundless aeons he never rests. The Buddha practiced for boundless aeons, purifying and mastering transcendent vows. Therefore he appears throughout the world, saving sentient beings forever and ever. Buddha cultivated extensively for countless aeons, transcendent power to deal with all truth. He has thus perfected natural power, appearing throughout all truths. Buddha cultivated all-sided knowledge. The nature of his omniscience is like space. Therefore he has unhindered power, illuminating all lands in the 10 directions. Then, the great enlightening being, cloud, sound, pure moon, empowered by the Buddha, looked over all the beings, gathered at the enlightenment site, and said, "The realm of his spiritual power is equal to space. No beings do not perceive them. The stages he perfected in his past practice are fully explained in the jewels. striving purely for countless aeons, he entered the first stage, that of extreme joy, producing the vast knowledge of the cosmos. He saw countless Buddhas of the 10 directions. In the stage of purity, amidst all things, he observed standards of purity, numerous as beings, having practiced extensively for many aeons. He served the boundless ocean of Buddhas. Accumulating virtue in the stage of radiance, his store of calm was firm and enduring. The vast cloud of teachings he had already learned. So it is told in the gemstone fruits. The incomparable stage of clear intellect, like an ocean of flames, comprehending situations, he gave rise to compassion, with equal physical presence in all lands. These accomplishments of the Buddha are all expounded. Universal store of equanimity, the difficult to conquer stage, according with action and stillness, without contradiction, the realm of the Buddhist teaching is completely impartial. How the Buddha purified it, the jewels can tell. Far-reaching practice, the stage of oceanic wisdom, totally comprehending all aspects of the teachings, appearing in all lands like space. The voice of these teachings comes from the trees. The body of space, pervading the cosmos, the lamp of wisdom, shining on all beings, all practical methods completely purified. His past, long journey he causes to be told. Adorned by execution of all vows, infinite oceans of lands are all pure, undisturbed by any discrimination. This perilous stage is fully explained. Mystic powers of infinite scope enter the illuminating power of the teaching. This pure stage of beneficent wisdom and its aeons of practice are fully revealed. The far-reaching 10th stage of clouds of teaching engulfs everything, pervading all space. The realm of the Buddha is told in the voice of the Buddha's spiritual power. Then, the great enlightening being, banner of a light of benevolent courage, empowered by the Buddha, surveyed the 10 directions, and said in verse, "Innumerable sentient beings are in the congregation. Their various minds of faith are all pure. All can enter into understanding of Buddha's wisdom, and understand all states which adorn it. Each initiates pure vows, and puts them into practice. All have made offerings to innumerable beings. They are able to see the real true body of Buddha, as well as his mystical displays. Some can see the Buddha's reality body, incomparable, unhindered, pervading everywhere. The nature of all things is the infinity of things, is in that body completely. Some see the Buddha's sublime body of form, its boundless physical characteristics, blazing with light. According to the different understandings of various beings, it transforms into various appearances, everywhere. Some see the body of unobstructed knowledge, equal in all times like space, according to the changes in beings' inclinations. It causes them to see all kinds of differences. Some can understand the Buddha's voice, pervading all lands in the 10 directions. According to sentient beings' abilities to understand, it produces verbal sounds for them without any hindrance. Some see the Buddha's various lights, variously shining throughout the world, and some see, too, the Buddha's light, Buddhas displaying their mystic powers. Some see the Buddha's oceans of clouds of light, issuing from his pores of radiant hues, showing the paths he practiced of yore, causing beings to deeply believe and enter Buddha's knowledge. Some see the Buddha's adorning marks and blessings, and see where the blessings come from. The oceans of transcendent means he practiced of old are clearly seen in the Buddha's marks. Buddha's qualities cannot be measured. They fill the cosmos without any bounds. These, and the ranges of psychic powers, these beings can expound through Buddha's power. Then, the ocean of worlds of arrays of flower banks, by the power of the Buddha, all shook in 6 ways, in 18 manners. That is, they trembled all over in all directions. They welled up all over in all directions. They surged all over in all directions. They quaked all over in all directions. They roared all over in all directions. They crashed all over in all directions. These various world leaders each caused clouds of inconceivable offerings to appear, raining on the ocean of beings at the sight of enlightenment, clouds of ornaments of all fragrant flowers, clouds and decorations of all precious stones, clouds of flower nets of all jewel flames, clouds of spheres of jewel lights of boundless varieties, clouds of treasures of pearls of all colors, clouds of all precious sandalwood scents, clouds of canopies made of the various kinds of precious substances, clouds of diamonds with pure resonance, clouds of necklaces of jewels shining like the sun, clouds of banks of light of all gemstones, clouds of all sorts of decorations. These clouds of adornments were infinite, inconceivably numerous. These world leaders each produced such clouds of offerings, showering upon the ocean of beings at the Buddha's sight of enlightenment, all reaching everywhere. As in this world, the world leaders joyfully produced such offerings, so did all the world leaders in all worlds, of the ocean of worlds of arrays of flower banks, make such offerings. In each of their worlds there was a Buddha sitting on the side of enlightenment. The individual world leaders, various resolutions of faith, foci of concentration, methods of meditation, practice of methods assisting enlightenment, accomplishments, joys, approaches, understandings of the teachings, access to the realm of Buddha's spiritual powers, access to the realm of Buddha's abilities, entryways into the Buddha's liberation, were the same as in the flower bank ocean of worlds, in all the ocean of worlds, in the entire space of the whole cosmos. End of Book 1.